You're tuned in to the Dakota Housing Network on Super Talk 1270 and supertalk1270.com. In-depth discussion and analysis of real estate issues nationwide and those issues unique to our area. Our team of experts includes Joe Sheehan, Greg Larson, Dave Floor, Brian Ritter, and a great variety of guests. The Dakota Housing Network begins now on Super Talk 1270 and supertalk1270.com.
Welcome to the Dakota Housing Network. I'm Greg Larson, your host, along with co-host half the man he used to be, Dave Floor.
Hey, I'm just happy to be included as last week in the description of experts.
There you go.
Just to be included. I'm not saying I am, just included. So I know they're just talking about you, but
yeah, right. Oh, good to have you. And also we have a guest with us today, Mike Wilson from Ace Inspections. Welcome,
Hi,
Mike.
folks. Thank you very much.
Today we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk a little bit about the housing market in general. Then we're going to get with Mike and get pretty specific about some of the things that have been going on about storm damage, things to look for, things to do, and then just general what happens and what kind of things you should be doing with your house. One thing I know we're going to talk about later on is the pollen count, because that's an
pollen
issue.
Count.
And what can we do about that?
Talking
Dave.
about bees.
Bees.
Yeah. Okay, pollen count.
All
And
that
if anybody has a question for Mike, 663-1270, please call in.
And if we can't answer, we'll make something up.
Yep, absolutely. We always do. Okay. Should we talk about interest rates, Greg?
Let's
what did they do this week? I got that info for you. Let's see. Freddie Mac survey is the one we always look at, their primary mortgage market survey. And, it's right on time because, but it's behind 2 days. But it's right on time. It's timely.
Right.
Okay.
Timely.
So anyway, the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage averaged 4.08%. For the week ending July 2nd. That was up from last week when it averaged 4.02%. I think in the last 2 days it probably came back down to around 4.02%. Yeah. It's been improving the last couple days. A year ago, the 30-year fixed rate was at 4.12, so we are virtually flat compared to last year, which is okay. It means interest rates haven't really done much, stayed within a range. 15-year average 3.24% this week. That's up from last week when it averaged 3.21. And last year, the 15-year fixed rate was at 3.22. So that's right on the nose almost. And a little information current from our friend Barry Habib at the Mortgage MBS Highway. We had a jobs report today, guys.
People have work, have jobs.
We all have jobs in the room. Jim's got a job. Greg's got a job. I got a job.
All God's children got jobs.
Yep. Well, we're all good here. So, okay. So we're part of this.
Okay.
Because we got a job. We're in the labor participation force. We're part of it. That's a good thing. But stocks are lower and mortgage bonds are higher today after a bit of weaker than expected jobs report. There were 223,000 jobs created in June, which actually isn't bad because it's above 200,000. But that was below the 233,000 that they expected. But what really is driving the stock market down and the mortgage bonds higher, which means lower interest rates are going lower. May's blockbuster number, as it was called, of 280,000 was revised lower to 254. And then April's figure was also revised lower by 35,000.
So not as many people got jobs as they thought.
Right, because those are all estimates.
Right.
Okay. So meaning that there were 60,000 in combined revisions lower for the past 2 months. So that's a pretty significant number. Now the unemployment rate declined, and you're going to see this in the news today, I'm sure, everybody. The unemployment rate declined from 5.5% to 5.3%. So that seems like, wow, that's a good deal, right, Mike?
Absolutely.
It sounds good. Sounds good. We'll hear that on the news tonight. Unemployment went down. However, if you look a little deeper, which Barry Habib has done, the main reason why is because the labor force decreased by 432,000 people. Okay, so in the household survey, where the unemployment rate is derived from, actually showed a loss of 56,000 jobs. So we would have seen an increase in unemployment rate if such a large number of workers did not leave the labor force. And the labor force participation rate declined to 62.9%, which is the lowest level in 38 years. That's not really good.
No, I've read that we have a very low number of employed people right now.
Yeah.
So when they leave the labor force, they're retiring out of it?
Retiring out of it, or just
they run out of
they're-
unemployment?
or they're, right, and they're just not going in and
Yeah.
filing a claim for
Okay.
unemployment, and that's what that means. So they're not actively working or not actively looking for work.
Okay.
That affects the labor participation rate. So when you hear these numbers tonight, folks, on the news or over noon hour and stuff, if they don't talk about some of the stuff that we just mentioned that our friend Barry B brought up, that's the numbers behind the numbers, and you can obviously with numbers you can always paint things to look how you want them to look. So they'll say the unemployment rate went down, but actually it's not because more people got jobs, it's because people left the workforce. So
Ouch.
there you go. All right. So what do you got, Greg?
Well, interesting. I have a couple of things from our buddy Elliot Eisenberg, the bow-tie economist.
We like Elliot.
His post is that the unfolding Greek tragedy won't directly affect the U.S. as the U.S. banks hold almost no Greek debt.
Oh, somebody was smart.
Yeah.
They didn't buy any Greek
No.
bonds. That's
How it
good.
may impact us. If things get volatile in Europe, the ECB, and I'm not sure exactly what that means.
European Central Bank.
See there?
That's
what
like
it
the
means.
Federal Reserve.
Right.
Federal
Okay.
Reserve for us. Yep.
They may increase bond purchases, putting downward pressure on interest rates, and investors will flock to safe haven U.S. bonds. This would increase the value of the dollar, hurt exports, reduce inflation, and thereby possibly delay the Fed's first rate rise.
So, gee.
So that goes right back to the flat interest rates we're seeing in mortgages.
And so that actually shows that we could see interest rates come
We
back
could
down
see
again.
interest rates even
in the next
tickle
6
down
months.
more towards 3% again.
Yep.
3-point-something percent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So be aware of that, folks. That
So as the Greeks go, so may go our mortgage rates.
yes. Yeah. Very well.
Okay, let me just wrap up before we take a break. The next thing is, and this is interesting, this is good news all across the board. Single-family housing starts nationwide are up 6.7% year-to-date. Single-family permits are up 7.5% year-to-date. That's good, healthy growth. But new home sales are staggering up 24%.
Wow. So
Nationwide.
builders are busy.
This means that what's being built is changing. Specifically, there aren't as many custom homes being made and more spec homes are being built, which means a downsizing of homes, more available homes. The first-time buyers accounted for 32% of the existing home sales in May nationwide.
Okay.
That means it's the first highest level in 32 months. That means the first-time home buyers look to be returning to the market, and that's good for everybody.
Yeah, that is good for
nationwide
everybody.
and locally.
So do you think we're seeing more spec homes built locally?
You know what? I can talk to that. We've got a break coming up. Maybe we
Okay.
should wait till we come back.
Okay.
Right now, 70.
Get the traffic and weather information you need anytime on Super Talk 1270 and online at supertalk1270.com.
And we're back. Welcome back to Dakota Housing Network. I'm Greg Larson with Dave Fleur and Michael J. Wilson, Ace Inspections. I don't know if
Home
it's J or
Inspections.
not.
Michael R. Wilson.
Michael
Michael R. Michael R.
But, right.
Okay.
When we left, we were talking about some statistics and spec homes, and the question was, do we do spec homes in the Bismarck
Are we
Mandan,
seeing an increase
an
in-
increase in spec homes? And we are somewhat.
Okay.
What we have here is the guys who do spec homes are selling homes at a rate to where it's pretty tough to build spec homes because they're building homes they have contracted.
Yeah. So there isn't really a big need to build a spec home because
They're
you've
trying
got
to
it sold.
Yeah, they're trying to get spec homes up. I know they'd like to do more. One of the things that makes spec homes a little tougher is right now banks are still really cautious about spec
Yeah.
financing. They don't want to have their builders out there with a lot of stuff financed that they have to struggle to get sold so they can build something else. So there's a little bit of a financing issue. It's not a big deal, but honestly, the builders I talk to, they're contracting them at a rate to where it's hard to put up 6 or 7 spec
They're
houses.
just keeping pace with what
Yeah.
they're getting orders
Yep.
for, basically. So that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have some other stats that we're going to just zip through here just for general information. Now, this is Bismarck, probably a 100-mile radius around Bismarck and Mandan we're talking here. Year to date, so we're talking to the end of June, so the first half of the year, we are doing very well in housing. Housing is off 8%. Now, that's numbers sold. 624 last year to 576 this year, and we're talking strictly single families. Reason for that is because we had a very slow start to the year. We were off in February, March. We were off almost 16%.
You think that
back to 8%?
You think that had to do with oil prices and people said, "Well, I want to see what happens"?
No, it had to do with people getting houses finished.
Okay, all right.
I haven't seen. I can't relate anything to the oil
Okay,
price.
all right.
as
That's
far
because
as-
that's what everybody asks us.
Yeah.
You know, they'll call me and say, "Well, how's the oil prices affecting?"
No, I was
everything?"
just talking to one of the Williston City Commissioners, and they just have approved 3 more housing developments to
Yeah.
get started. So
Yeah.
they're calling it a chance to catch up.
Yes, exactly.
So anyway, we're off 8% in numbers sold, but we're catching up quickly. I would guess in the next 2 months we will be ahead of that. The average list price is up 7%. Average sold price is up 7%. Days on the market is down 9%, which means, but that's kind of typical summers when people want to get this stuff done before school starts and that sort of thing. And the average sales price is 98% of list price. So
Pretty
market
good.
is good and
solid.
strong.
Solid, man.
You want to compare it to this time last year, number of units sold is up 4% already over
Okay.
last year
All
total.
right.
8% increase in list price, 8% increase in sold price. Days in the market is up 1%, and again 98%. So the market is good. We have an appreciating market at 8%, which is healthy. It's not too strong,
Yeah.
so everything is good.
So the bottom line is that Mike, Greg, and Dave will still be participating in the labor force for the foreseeable future,
I think that's
at
a
least
good
through the
statement.
end of the year.
I think that's a good statement.
Okay, all right, there we
There
go.
we go.
That's our prediction, is that the 3 of us and Jim, because we're doing the radio show with Jim over there on the board, that we will all be in the labor participation force for the rest of this year.
So there we're knocking
There we
on
go.
real wood, actually. So the real deal is, if you want to get into the housing market, things are good. Houses are appreciating. It's a great investment. I don't know of another one that we can see historically showing 6 to 8%.
Well, I know if I put my money in a savings account in a bank, I get like a 1/10%.
yeah.
So
right.
that sounds better.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. And you know what you should do if you're going to buy a house? You need to call a home inspector.
You do, and have that house
Called
inspected.
Michael R. Wilson.
Yep.
Okay, at Ace Inspections.
At Ace
Okay,
Inspections.
all right.
Yes, thanks.
So what are we going
Yay.
to talk to him about?
Well, first we're going to talk about, somewhat about, well, let's just go right to it since I brought it up. Mike, allergies, pollen counts. What are the things you should look at a house? He's got this blank stare on his face.
Well,
'cause he didn't
you know,
know
the
what's
thing
coming.
is that
He's going to wing it, though.
with the added moisture that we're finding with all these high water storms that are coming through here, there are times when you start getting water seeping into your house, whether it is because of poor grading, downspouts that aren't extended out, gutters overflowing. That water can come, settle along your foundation, drive itself underneath your house, and then work its way kind of into the walls, into the carpet, and all that stuff. And that can create, issues with mold and stuff like that. Symptoms of mold, of course, are going to be like allergies, the drippy nose, the runny eyes, those things. If you start finding that you're having those types of symptoms, it's not a bad idea to have that tested. And depending on the type of mold that you'll find, it could be anywhere between penicillin all the way to like the black mold. Traditionally, when you're talking about black mold, that has to have a consistent water source. So that's going to be something that you're going to have more of a consistent leak, and it has to stay wet long enough for it to go through its generation cycle. And then, of course, it's not the mold itself in black mold that we're allergic to, it's the toxin that's created that affects us.
So if you have black mold in a house, if you find that, it's probably then what you're saying is it would have to be, if it's from the outside, you'd have to have a constant source going into your house somewhere, or you have a leak in your plumbing in your house.
Right, I was going to suggest
Yeah.
that. There are times when you'll have a drain, like in a bathroom drain, you'll have where that plunger nut is on the back. If that's not tight enough, that can leak. So every morning and every evening when you brush your teeth, a little bit of water comes underneath there, settles underneath your cabinet. That can be a consistent enough source for water and black mold.
And even sweating pipes when it's hot and humid can cause a little drip, cause a puddle.
Yeah,
So
and in the
should
spring on that too.
So should you, number one, then it seems like you should pay attention to your water bill to see if it seems like it's going up, because then that might be an indication of a leak. And you should really check underneath like in your vanities where your plumbing is at, any source, and look for evidence of a leak. Do it on a routine basis.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea to run all your faucets, all your sinks, run them for 10 minutes, all of them, all at once. Then put your hands on all the plumbing underneath, making sure that there aren't any water leaks or anything coming through there. Beyond that, when you do that, and that's part of my inspection, as I do that. I do that not only to check for leaks, but also for any backups in the sewer lines. Sometimes in the older parts of our town, we have clay tile main sewer line that comes from our house and connects to the city's system. At times, roots will get into those joints, create a clog, and then that can cause issues. One of the warning signs of that is if your washing machine dumps and you heard gurgling coming up from your drains or your toilet or something like that, that's water that has actually hit that clog, and it's forcing the air that was once trapped in that pipe out of those drains. After the air is all relieved, then it's going to be water. So if you hear that gurgling coming up from your pipes, shut off your washing machine from dumping, let it drain a little bit, and then finish, and then call your local plumber to do the proper clean out as needed. Some places are on a 6-month rotation, some are a year, 2 years, but those are the signs for an issue.
Good tip.
So we went right to the big dogs, mold. And listeners should understand, right, Mike, that most molds are harmless.
That's true.
They just need to be cleaned up with bleach or a mold killer, mildicides, those sort of things. Other things that cause allergies that are out there, and this is where I thought we'd start, was like, I live in a cottonwood tree area, and it looked like it was snowing last week.
Yeah.
And, all the allergies fly up. So what can you do in your home to prevent allergies? We're coming up on another break, and so we'll take a lesser look at allergies when we get back from that. Sort of put you on the spot there. I thought we were going to go from one point to the other, but we're going to work our way back.
That's fine.
Okay.
We're good.
So we got I think a couple minutes here, or a minute or so.
Okay.
So let's see. Now I lost my train of thought, Greg. So
while
cover
you do
for
that,
me, man.
All right, I will. I got
okay,
you. I got your
right.
back.
Okay.
I heard Mike say this just the other day. That's why I sound so smart.
Oh, okay.
If you have allergies, change your air filter in your furnace. More frequently, turn the fan to on instead of auto, so that it's pulling air through your house constantly, and the filter does a better job getting the pollens and those things out of the air.
Okay.
And that's
very
true.
good.
When you talk about air filters, there's an item called a MERV rating. The higher the MERV rating, the more fine particles that's going to pull out. A higher MERV rating in the summer is not a bad idea because it'll pull out those pollens. In the winter, it's best to turn to a lower MERV rating. It's easier on the furnace and extends life.
And those are posted on the filter box. You can see it. Yeah. So.
Oh, but this is getting technical. You got to have a higher MERV rating in the summer and a lower one in the winter. Wow.
Or just change your filter a couple of weeks earlier.
There you go.
All right.
Okay.
We'll see you on the other side.
Right now, 70.
Get the app called Radio Pup for your iPhone and take us everywhere you go. Bismarck and Mandan's own Super Talk 1270.
And we're back. Simon and Garfunkel's patriotic music theme today. Back with Mike Wilson, Ace Inspections, and Mr. Dave Fleur.
Hey. All right.
And Greg Larson. So we were talking, Mike, about humidity and allergies and that sort of thing. And we sort of ended on maybe a good idea also would be to have a dehumidifier in your basement.
Yeah, with these moist times, your air conditioner, of course, does take some of the moisture out of your house, but your house air conditioner is also fighting the moisture that's outside. So try to assist that by putting a dehumidifier both in your laundry area because of the moisture that's created by your washing machine once it's done, and then also in the basement. There's times when you have not really detectable moisture, but humidity that comes up from the ground, and it's a good idea to go ahead and catch that and move it away so it doesn't create a humid area.
Yeah, right. And I actually, in our house, we have one in our laundry room, and our basement's, it's good size, and it's kind of cordoned off a little bit, the laundry room. We have one in the laundry room and one in the bigger living room, family room, whatever you want to call it. So
Sure.
They pull out water.
They do.
Yeah.
So last night we had this thunderstorm come through.
We did.
And it was a banger. I live, as you guys know, along the river, and it woke me up, and I looked at it, and it was lightning north to south all along the river, and lots of thunder. And I thought, it's just God showing off before the 4th of July, saying, top that.
Yeah,
kids.
there you go.
But,
Sure.
got me to thinking, we've had a lot of storms, we had a lot of flatline winds, trees breaking, damage, roofs blown off. Mike, what should folks start to look for?
If you have the opportunity to get up on your roof, it's always a good idea to make sure that the shingles are in good condition. I'm sure with time that's gone by from these storms, I'm sure people have already taken account of their roof. But just make sure that everything is laying down well. If you see that there's any creasing in any of your shingles, that means that they have lifted up and are settled down. Wouldn't be a bad idea to put some adhesive underneath that shingle just to make sure that that's going to seal well.
Any kind of adhesive?
Well, like a roof shingle or roof sealant would assist with that.
Okay.
Anything that's actually going to keep
So when it
down.
gets really windy out, then should you go outside and stand and watch and see if any of your shingles flap in the wind?
Well, if there's a lot of debris flying around, I wouldn't really advise it. But, if there's...
Put a couple of bricks in your pocket and go look.
And go look, yeah.
Yeah.
And just say, oh, they're flapping in the wind. I got to get it fixed, right?
There have been times when I've done inspections on a windy day, and there have been a couple of shingles that have lifted up. And, of course, that helps with the inspection. So not a bad idea.
Yeah, wow. I had a good idea. I was kidding around, but I had a good idea.
True.
Okay.
Also on the siding, always check to see if there's any debris damage on a vinyl siding. And then also air conditioner compressors. Those fins in there can be easily dented from, flying trampolines and all that other stuff that's been flying around. So,
and it's important, Greg, on your side, the real estate side, if we've had these storms and now somebody wants to list their house, that you're going to be asking them questions.
Yep.
Any damage, any insurance claims, et cetera, right?
We are.
Yeah.
And a lot of them will be in the middle of an insurance claim. Matter of fact, we had an inspection done by this Ace Inspections guy yesterday on a house, and the owners have vacated, and the buyers were there, and we noticed some recently damaged shingles. So, we'll have to deal with that. But just as a homeowner, those things are important, and check for dents, and then also getting the water away from the house, right, Mike?
Absolutely. These storms gives you an opportunity. As soon as the storm actually passes by, it's not a bad idea to go ahead and walk around your house. Look at how the gutters are handling the water. If you're noticing that water is overflowing over your gutters, not a bad idea to make sure that those gutters are not only clear, but your downspouts are clear. That might be a sunny day project versus in the middle of the rain.
So do you see, though, if we get a torrential rain, can that you could go out, you could look outside or check it and see it, and their gutters are overflowing, because that could be just because they can't keep up.
Well,
with
and you
rain,
would verify
right?
that with the downspout.
Yeah.
Make sure
So
that
once the rain kind of slows down, if it automatically is going out, then
right,
you're probably okay.
Yeah, if it's keeping up, or if the downspouts are actually moving the water out, that's more the concern there, of course.
Okay.
Also, a good idea to see that they're graded properly. If they're graded towards the middle, then they may be just overflowing in one spot instead of going out the sides. So something to keep in mind.
So, like if there's a dip in the gutter.
Right,
Okay.
right. The other side is making sure that there isn't any ponding around your house. If you have any grading that is moving towards your house and you have like a downspout that doesn't have the extension where the water is coming and settling not only close to your foundation, but is running across your foundation, that can be an area of concern. And there are times when you can't just add additional dirt to fill in that part because there may be a window or stuff in that area. The possible option there would be to go ahead and either create a trench or some pathway for the water to move away from there to drain and into a lower area, or look into possibly adding in a French drain, which would be a buried pipe that would catch that water, perforated pipe, and then transfer it away.
Now, how far do you want that water to get away from the house typically?
You want it at least 6 feet away from the property. You're grading, you would ultimately like it to be 1 inch per foot for 6 feet, so that no matter what, traditionally you are protected. The other part of that is this landscaping with all the rocks and stuff. It sure is pretty. The difficulty with that is it can hold water behind that plastic. Plus, when you put in the rocks, and the rocks are the same height as the lawn, that means that there's actually a little pool where the rocks are, and that can hold water and bring it down underneath your foundation and cause issues.
So what do you prefer to see then around a house for landscaping?
Well, it's personal preference, but if you want to do the rocks, you sure can, but you want to take extra steps. So you want to put a hole through that plastic edging, make sure that the water can come through, and then also trench through the grass itself to make sure that if you put a gallon of water behind that plastic edging, that it'll be able to actually move through. Now, depending on the year of the home, if you don't have water tile or drain tile in your house, then that water will collect next to your foundation, come down to underneath your basement floor, and cause issues as far as water entry or the actual floor moving. So that's something that you want to be cautious about.
So you see, sometimes you'll see around a house, you'll see people put up a wall, brick.
Like a retaining wall?
A retaining wall type of thing. And if you do that, you need to make sure that you do put drainage behind that, because that definitely would hold the water against your house.
Yeah. You want to make sure that all of your dirt and stuff is definitely moving away from the property. Gravel and rocks don't move water.
No.
If you are on the brink of doing a new retaining wall project, it is always a good idea to put in like a French drain to catch that water, to not only protect your house if it's close to the house, but it also keeps that water from building up behind that wall, and then during the freezing process will push that wall out as far as not only for decorative landscaping and stuff, but along the streets to protect sidewalks and stuff. There's also times when folks will put in drain tile or a French drain and then actually have it weep out the front. So then it keeps that water from backing up behind there.
Okay, so if someone has not done rock landscaping but wants to, you would probably suggest landscaping cloth instead of plastic?
Yeah.
Even though it's more expensive?
It lets that water move through it and such. It creates a much easier barrier for weeds, so it will protect you from that, but will still keep it from retaining that water.
Okay, window wells. Talking to a guy the other day, in the big storm earlier this month, had a window well fill up, blew the window out, flooded the basement. So what can we do with window wells?
I always support having a cover over the top of it for a couple of reasons. One, it keeps the rain out, but it also keeps the snow out. So if it's an emergency situation, you need to get out, you don't have time to shovel it out, so you can actually open it up. The other side of that is you want to have at least 6 to 8 inches of true airspace between the bottom of the window frame itself and the top of the material. That way you can make sure that you can monitor the level of the water as it comes up, and it also gives you an opportunity to bail it out instead of having to dig a hole and then bail out of that. And then, of course, caulk the sides of your window well to the concrete make sure the water isn't coming along the back of there, and then making sure the grading is moving away from the property. So
Well,
it
the
doesn't
cover
just
is
fill. The cover,
best solution.
the cover is a really good solution, but I like preparing for the default. So if the cover flies off, then you're still protected.
Yeah.
So
Because and obviously, you know, like in a basement, if you put in a big egress window, that's a light source, and maybe you don't want the cover over it, right?
right,
Yeah.
yeah. So it gives you that opportunity, and especially these deep window wells. For an emergency situation, it's not a bad idea to have some sort of a ladder. You can put just a step ladder in there, or they do make actual ladders that hook onto the window well itself for egress for kids and such like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good
Okay.
point there. Okay, I believe we're ready for our next break, are we not?
All
There we
right.
go.
Okay, when we come
Talk
back,
to you later.
663-1270. Any questions for Mike?
Red and white, blue suede shoes. I'm Uncle Sam. How do you do?
Right now, 72.
Sean Hannity, weekdays at 2, only on Super Talk 1270.
Welcome back to Dakota Housing Network. I'm Greg Larson here with
Dave Floor.
and Mike Wilson from Ace Inspections. We're talking about some storm damage things you should look at. I want to start out first, though, Mike. In the break, you were saying people should know you are not a repair expert,
Right. I'm a defect recognition individual.
and he's happy to point out my defects regularly.
I'm basically like a general contractor with general knowledge. If there's any specific problems, electrical, plumbing, and all that other stuff, of course, I would like to refer you to experts within that field and also for their repair.
Yeah, any home inspector, the job is to go. You're working for the person buying the house, or it could be the seller asking for one. Is just simply to go in and you just note that, hey, this is defective, or it might be a problem, or it could be a problem in the future, and that's all you're doing.
Yeah. Plus,
And-
I also give a heavy educational component. So I teach you about your washing machine, your
Yeah.
garbage disposal, all that
And
other
the
stuff.
we were just talking about with drainage around your house and
Right.
grading and all that. Yeah.
But the other side of that is that I'm looking for the larger stuff, as far as a nick in the flooring or in a door or paint that's missing on a wall. That's not really something that I'm looking for. I'm looking for structural cracks. I'm looking for issues that can be a high dollar fix or safety concern. Those are the things I'm looking for. So as far as the smaller cracks, and as far as cracks, there is a few patterns of cracks that are normal in a house, depending on the age of the home. A few cracks are going to be kind of normal, but there are cracks that could be a sign of a defect and need further exploration, and that's really where the trained home inspector comes into play for that.
But you don't open any walls.
No,
You go in
no.
the attic, you go on the roof, but you don't go into any walls or do anything like that.
Anything that's easily accessible. As far as again, attics, I do go up in there, look for moisture issues and stuff like that. But also, if there's an access panel for a whirlpool, that's another thing that I get into. But I cannot open up anything that is sealed.
Yeah. So if there was mold behind a wall in a basement, you're not gonna. You don't necessarily know what's there.
It would be difficult to know that. But of course, if there is mold growing and it's active at that point, then a trained nose gives you signs that there is issues, along
Plus-
with like gas leaks.
I don't know about all inspectors, but you have mold detector. You can do a mold test.
I do an air quality
air
mold
quality,
test,
yeah.
and I can also do a sample test. So if there's anything fuzzy
You
on
can
your
swipe it. Yeah.
okay.
swipe or take a sample and send that in.
Plus, you do radon.
I do radon testing. That's a 48-hour test. I have a machine that is calibrated once a year that will take 2 samples every half hour for 48 hours, and then it'll average that together. The EPA average is a little different than the full average because it takes the first hour out for calibration. Now remember, if you're having a radon test in your house as a seller, the rules are that you have to have the windows closed, It's best not to do any laundry because that could change the radon levels. It could actually raise the level in your house and get a negative test as needed. And then, of course, don't bump it.
Okay. Just jump right back to mold. During the break, you're talking about what you should use to clean mold. It shouldn't be bleach. It should be...
Bleach has that chlorine and it evaporate back out, the chlorine in there. Borax is the proper thing to do. So if you do find mold, then you should use a cup of borax in a gallon of water is the correct solution with that. Put a little bit of Dawn in there for cleaning and such like that. But it'll actually leave a residual layer behind and continue to fight that mold if it does ever try to spring up.
Okay. We're going to move to the outside, talk about some decks, maybe some tree damage. If you know anything about tree damage, I don't know, I'm putting you on the spot here again. But people should know that home inspections are routine when you buy or sell a house. It's not necessarily the only time you should have a home inspection. I have talked with several clients where mom and dad are getting older, the kids are going to get more involved, they want to stay in the house, and I say it's a good idea. I'll tell you, they want me to tell them what the house is worth and that sort of stuff. I'll do that. But I suggest get a home inspection. Find out what you guys are looking at, because now it's going to be your job to take care of that house for mom and dad. You got to take a look at it and see how things look. And,
not only that, but
works.
I'll do a home inspection for the parents' children, because they're of buying age, and of course the parents, both sets of parents are there watching and listening to my educational components and the tips that I'm giving. And there have been times when I've been asked to inspect their house for perspective of grading and maintenance issues.
And there are a number of home inspectors in North Dakota and in the Bismarck-Mandan area. They are licensed and bonded, and you can go to the Secretary of State's office
website
and find out who they are.
That's correct. Yeah,
So-
there is a state list that is available.
We may have a favorite, but that's where you find where they all are.
Okay. So what about decks?
Decks.
You brought it up. Well, what are we?
I did.
That's a thing on the back of your house
The
that
thing
you sit in and
put
grill
your grill
and-
on and drop your hot dogs on.
Okay, all right,
Right.
okay.
And hornets build nests under. That's your deck.
Okay,
Right.
all right,
Sure.
okay.
Decks are an interesting deal. There are times when, especially in an older house, pre-78,
Okay.
when if you're doing if the inspection on the house is FHA or VA financed, then if there's any chipping paint, if there's any exposed wood, then that may have to be sealed. Now, if it is a varnish or a clear seal, then that doesn't apply. But if it's anything that is actually colored or such, then that is something that needs
So
to
does that
be.
apply to like a stain that somebody's put on?
It depends on the stain.
Yeah. The whole.
But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if it's built before '78, if that had ever been painted with anything with lead in it,
That's the concern.
it's in the wood, and even though it's probably been redone many times since, if it was a 1960 house,
right.
it could potentially have the lead-based paint in it.
Interestingly enough, you could have a totally replaced deck 5 years ago, and there was a product that came out that unfortunately did chip up and bubble up. And even though it is attached to a pre-78 house, that still falls into those guidelines.
Oh, so even though it was a brand new deck,
Mm-hmm.
because it's on a pre-'78 house, those rules still apply.
We're speaking of FHA and VA,
VA, right,
rules.
Yeah.
For conventional, of
Okay.
course,
Yeah.
that's not as much of an issue.
Okay.
But it's always a good idea to make sure that your deck is sealed to prevent from weather damage. And if you find that your deck wood fibers are starting to spread out, you definitely want to get on top of that. Another proactive thing you want to do is make sure that you're protecting the posts as they enter into the ground. Not a bad idea to add additional dirt around those posts to shed water away from there. There have been times when I've done inspections and the post itself is down in a well, holds water. That water will sink down around that support and the dirt will lose its structural integrity, and that corner of the deck will sink. So always a good idea to do that. That same concept goes along with manufactured homes. When you when it dries out, understanding right now it's going to be a little mucky underneath there, make sure that everything is drying out for you underneath those manufactured homes, and that you are controlling the water flow if it does get underneath your property, to make sure that it is staying away from those pillars that are holding up your house. There are times when, again, water will pool around those and it'll settle your property. One of the things that will give that away is cracking that's developing in your walls in there, and then also the separation between the wall and the ceiling, because those are two separate items. Okay. We're starting to get some movement in there. And of course, a rolling floor will tell you that there's some stuff going on. But always a good idea to get underneath there, kind of poke around and see what condition that's in.
I have a brick patio, so I'm good.
You're good, huh?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Well, I have a deck that's old, and now it's going to need to be replaced just because it's 22 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But when I put it down, I bought the wrong screws. And so first thing I noticed, I started having rot around those screw holes.
Mm-hmm.
Ah.
And I thought, well, here we go. We got to fix all of that. And I went to Bismarck Lumber, actually, but a lumberyard, asked what I should do, and they said, pull the screw out, put in a new screw, and then put an epoxy coating on it. And that's really helped.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
but now it's an old deck that wants to go away, so
Yeah.
we'll be doing that. But
And I think that epoxy coating helps for that dry rot, the prevention of that to continue.
okay. We're running up to the end of this show. Mike, if people want to talk to you, how can they get a hold of you?
You know, you can call me at 701-471-5344. I also have a website, aceinspectionsnd.com, and then my email is the same, aceinspectionsnd@yahoo.com. So you can contact me any of those ways.
aceinspectionsnd.com
Correct.
is the best place. Okay. All right. So any words of wisdom to leave us with?
You know, it's always a good idea to be proactive in your house. So if there are things that are in need to be done, grading, painting your siding, especially on masonite siding, that bottom edge, make sure that that's always intact. Otherwise, you'll get a little bit of delamination there. And then also taking care of your wood siding. Make sure that you're preventing woodpeckers from getting in there by killing the bug that's inside the wall, and then sealing up those holes that the woodpeckers are making. Just being proactive about your property, and you'll have a better home when it's time to resell.
Okay, Mike, thanks so much for coming in. As always, it's good information. We'll be back with you later when we're going to start talking about winterizing and things like that, because unfortunately that comes back again. So we'll be doing that. Listeners, thank you for being here. We appreciate it, and we will see you next Thursday.
All right. I think Joe and I.
This has been the Dakota Housing Network on Super Talk 1270. Join us again next Thursday morning at 11 a.m. The Dakota Housing Network is heard weekly right here on Super Talk 1270 and online at supertalk1270.com.